Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and we have some new news out of our favorite bank, JP Morgan. Let's go into this article here as it says JP Morgan's profits drop as bank braces for severe recession. And as it says, first quarter earnings season officially kicked off Tuesday with JP Morgan Chase reporting results, and it looks like it'll be a doozy as Wall Street gets its first glimpse at how the coronavirus pandemic hit U.S. companies last quarter. Net income at JP Morgan was down 69%. Coming in at $2.9 billion as the bank increased its reserves by $6.8 billion in anticipation of credit losses spurred by a slowing economy and low oil prices. Earnings per share of 78 cents were down 71% from the year ago quarter. Revenue of $29 billion was down 3% from last year, and it's quite incredible considering, as we reported, and people called us crazy at the time for saying so, JP Morgan warned their investors to get out of the US dollar early last year. Now, we put out a video on it, and immediately people said, we're fear-mongering, that's crazy, they don't know more than we know, and all this, the nonsense, the usual nonsense you get for posting a video trying to tell the truth about obvious basic economic function. But now we see JP Morgan was trying to insure themselves, and they are facing an imminent recession, according to them. Now, we've seen a recession since 2008. It never ended. It was papered over. What we are seeing today is much more than just a recession. It's a global depression, the likes of which we've never seen before. But there's more news out of JP Morgan. If I can pull this up on the screen for you guys. JP Morgan Chase to raise mortgage borrowing standards as economic outlook darkens. Well, there's some more interesting information in this Wall Street Journal article that for some reason there isn't an ad wall on for me. JP Morgan prepares for wave of defaults linked to coronavirus shutdown. First quarter results in New York Bank's consumer unit fall sharply while trading revenue rises. And as it goes into here, JP Morgan Chase & Co. bracing for severe recession, set aside another $6.8 billion to cover potential losses on loans to consumers and companies struggling to stay afloat during the coronavirus shutdown. The nation's biggest bank said Tuesday that profit fell by nearly 70% in the first quarter when the coronavirus pandemic slammed the brakes on the U.S. economy. It warned that it may set aside even more of its profits to cover loan losses if its second quarter forecasts, including an unemployment rate of 20%, prove to be accurate. And I think it'll be a much bigger unemployment rate than 20%. We'll go back into the article in a moment. But I do want to note that the economy was slowing down dramatically before the coronavirus. It was just a matter of what was going to knock the dominoes over, what was going to be the catalyst to cause the economy to collapse. And what we witnessed with the coronavirus, and it was enforced, government shutting everything down, essentially, that's what led to what we are seeing today. But again, a catalyst, not the cause. Let's be clear on that. The economy was completely propped up and based on nothing, and the fundamentals weren't there in the stock market. So it was only a matter of time before the stock market was going to fall and the bubble was going to burst, and the Fed would come in with the plunge protection team and all sorts of stuff, do QE and try and pump the stock market. But going back into this article here, as it says, in the past month, JP Morgan has temporarily closed hundreds of branches. Its biggest corporate clients have drawn down billions of dollars on their credit lines and sought billions more in new debt. Many of its customers, businesses, and consumers alike are struggling to pay their debts. For much of this turbulent period, longtime chief executive Jamie Dimon, was out of commission recovering from emergency heart surgery. Talk about good timing there. As it says, and I quote, "This is such a dramatic change of events," said Mr. Dimon, who returned to work a few weeks ago. "There are no models that have ever done this." Well, we tried to warn you. Of course, you knew all about it, Jamie Dimon. As it continues here, it says, JP Morgan's quarterly profit fell to $2.87 billion, or 78 cents per share, compared with $9.18 billion or $2.65 a share a year earlier. Analysts had forecast 2.16 per share, according to FactSheet. Revenue declined 3% to $28.25 billion, compared with a $29.12 billion a year before. That fell short of the $29.55 billion analysts had predicted. The sharp drop in profits is a reversal from the past 2 years, but it's likely only a hint of the damage yet to come. Well, it was all propped up and fake to begin with, and I'll get into that in a moment. The banks, as it says, the bank's total provision for soured loans rose $6.8 billion from the previous quarter to $8.29 billion. That is already more than the bank has had in reserve since 2010. Chief Financial Officer Jennifer Piepzak warned it may not be enough. She said the provision was based in part on the assumption that U.S. gross domestic product would fall 25%, and said that unemployment would rise to above 10% in the second quarter. Since then, Ms. Piepzak said J.P. Morgan economists have amended their forecast to a 40% decline in GDP and a 20% unemployment rate. J.P. Morgan prepared for the steepest losses in its consumer business. Ms. Piepzak said the government's stimulus efforts will determine the ultimate size of its credit card losses. Profit in JP Morgan's consumer unit plunged 95% to $191 million, largely due to the loan loss provision, particularly in credit cards. Revenue in the consumer unit dropped 2%. Card usage slowed in the quarter, as did home lending and mortgage originations. By the way, it should be mentioned that there's also a huge Airbnb bubble that I don't think enough people are talking about right now, where people that own 30 to 60 properties and are renting them out through Airbnb and have no one at all getting their Airbnbs can lead to a massive bubble in itself. It was a bubble. It's going to burst. I mean, I think all those people cannot pay their mortgages. They have to defer on their mortgages. We're talking insane amounts of mortgages that they can't pay. They're running out of cash. Imagine what's going to happen when that comes to realization later on. Carrying on with this article here, it says stock market volatility increased demand for trading, and big corporate clients clamored for cash. Trading revenue jumped 32% and lending profits rose. The bank said it was its best quarter ever for issuing investment grade credit. Still, revenue in the corporate and investment bank slipped 1% to $9.95 billion, and profit fell 39% to $2 billion, hit by a markdown on the value of loans its bankers hadn't yet sold. And then it says JP Morgan said corporate clients drew down some $50 billion on their credit lines in the first quarter, contributing to a 60% jump in borrowing that brought the bank's total loan book above $1 trillion for the first time. Deposits grew by 23% to $1.8 trillion, largely due to business borrowers socking away their borrowed funds. The commercial bank's profit fell 86% to $147 million on credit loss reserves of $1 billion, largely stemming from the worsening conditions of its energy industry borrowers. The asset and wealth management division's profit was flat at $664 million. And I do want to note that if you look at the cash to deposit ratio for basically every major bank, it's minimal at best. It's ridiculous. Many are below 1% of cash covered or deposits covered in cash, which tells you all you need to know about how actually solvent they really are. They're all insolvent. They've all been bankrupt. Economic analyst here at WAM, John Snyson, broke that down with I think a couple hundred banks around the world and their cash deposit ratios by reading their balance sheets. It's absolutely ridiculous. And now with this crisis on top of it, people want their money out, so they're probably going to go cashless because they don't want people to be able to take their money out. We're looking at the potential of very real bail-in regimes coming to a bank near you as well. And all while Jamie Dimon's having a heart attack, the whole economy globally is collapsing. And they say, well, things were great like a year ago. Yeah, well, it's all propped up. It's all fake. They were getting a ridiculous amount. They're literally printing money. So, I mean, at what point do you realize that this isn't fundamentally right? It is fake, as Robert Kiyosaki told us all about in an interview not that long ago on his book called Fake. Talking about fake money, fake news, fake everything. And JP Morgan isn't alone in this, but carrying on with these stories here, it says JP Morgan shares drop after bank warns borrower defaults could get meaningfully worse. Well, of course. And it's just interesting because all the while we have hedge fund managers quietly apply for bailouts as small businesses. And as it says, several hedge funds, just predatory, several hedge funds have attempted to tap into the $349 billion Paycheck Protection Program, including the historic $2 trillion U.S. stimulus package designed to keep small businesses afloat during the coronavirus pandemic, according to Bloomberg, which, by the way, in some cases is giving businesses that make $10 million a year $40,000. That'll help. Thanks, government, for stealing money and printing money to... Anyway, we'll get into that more in a moment. As it says, managed by Small Business Administration, the PPP was intended to cover payroll, rent, and utilities for up to 8 weeks, providing loans which convert to grants if recipients retain or rehire their workers. In fact, an entire cottage industry has sprung up surrounding the program, with law firms hosting webinars for struggling businesses looking for guidance on how to gain access to the funds. Well, let me just note that the chances of your small business surviving after this economic downturn are very minimal. I'm just being very honest here. 43% of businesses polled say that they won't be able to get by after this at all. We're already witnessing a lot of the effects in places like Wuhan, China, which was just absolutely covered up. People have been disappeared. It's horrible what's happening in China. And it really is a wake-up call to people about how bad central planning is, but yet at the same time, they're coming in with more central planning to fix the problems of central planning, which everyone's blaming on the coronavirus. The coronavirus being, again, the catalyst, but not the reason. So we have money printed out of thin air, these banks pumping, the economy with money, all fake, all just... It's enforced via social contract usury by legal tender laws. It's not real, and the more you print, the less value your money has, the more prices go up on everything. And if more people understood that, they would stop supporting these shutdowns, because the shutdowns are going to kill way more people than the coronavirus itself. Now, I'd be remiss to not mention this article. It's kind of hilarious because we've reported a lot on Larry Fink from BlackRock in the past. As it says, investing is dead. World's largest asset manager says, we'll just buy whatever central banks are buying. Yeah, well, see, this is the issue. They're just pumping the stock market with fake money. It's not real, and it's only going to make it worse when push comes to shove. They say the economy's the stock market's actually improving right now. Is it? Is the stock market improving? Because I'm looking at the potential of 60 or more million people without jobs. Why would the stock market improve? It's all based on investor speculation, but mostly at this current moment, pumping with fake money. It's not even helping with 0% interest rates and everything. As it says, now that the Fed has, as Rabobank put it, carved central planning into the bedrock of the U.S. financial system, and moral hazard is not just universally accepted but widely expected component of the investing process, or what's left of it, it probably also means that conflicts of interest also no longer exist. Because when the asset manager tasked with executing the Fed's takeover of the bond market says that it also plans on co-investing with the Fed, its client whose trades it is executing and thus potentially front-running, what is that if not one giant conflict of interest? Worse, what does it say about the future of the entire financial industry and investing itself? BlackRock, which manages roughly $7 trillion in assets and is the world's largest asset manager, said it plans to keep a significant cash cushion for now given uncertainty about length and depth of economic downturn, and will follow the Fed and other DM central banks by purchasing what they're purchasing and assets that rhyme with those, wrote Rick Reeder, head of the firm's global allocation team, in a blog post. And I quote, "We are thinking about the coming weeks in terms of two intervals." Reeder, who is also chief investment officer of Global Fixed Income and manages about $2.3 trillion in fixed income assets, wrote, "An initial phase which involves having a large cash pile and then following central banks' purchases and buying assets that rhyme with those." And I quote, "That means buying U.S. nominal duration where there is still scope for rates to rally further, i.e. the back end, which also provides a dependable risk hedge. BlackRock will own some U.S. break-evens that are cheap for technical reasons, and we will be selling U.S. rate volatility as rates come down and are pinned lower, especially at the front end. The firm will rotate out of agency mortgage-backed securities and into investment-grade credit, along with buying other high-quality assets not included in the Fed's purchase program." And I just find it funny witnessing BlackRock, despite saying, I think about a year and a half ago, now is the time to buy, and don't worry about any dips because we're going to be good for many years. I don't see anything bad happening until like 2025 or something like that. And again, people keep blaming it on the coronavirus. It was a catalyst. It was about to collapse anyway. It was a stock. It was a bubble at 20,000 Dow. Never mind 30,000 Dow. And here we have this company that we reported on at the time was giving people bad advice, and people again called us crazy. I mean, look, we are witnessing the biggest controlled collapse of the global economy in history, which will morph into a massive power shift, I believe, to China. And we told people for years, prepare. It's better to be overly prepared than underprepared. And obviously, not that many people listened. Some of you did, obviously, but many people didn't. When you see people rushing stores for toilet paper, no food, they don't know what to do. Then at the last second, they're buying guns. And then, they're told to stay inside. And if they go outside, they could see a year in prison or more. We're witnessing the craziest time in world history, and very few countries are out of the mix of shutdowns right now, and it's absolutely tragic because it'll kill so many more people. Poverty will kill so many more people. Inflation will kill so many more people. As Tim Pachot and John Snyson have said recently here at WHAM, we'll probably see deflation before we see inflation because the money that's being printed isn't actually going into the hands of individuals. It's just being printed into the stock market, etc. But the more you prop it up, the more it's going to come down. And when you're trying to protect against something that collapsed in 2008 and they just papered over, the collapse that we've been warning about forever is epic, bigger than anything we've seen in history. And obviously we were called crazy, but now we're seeing this happen, and they're still saying, well, maybe we can just keep printing. Maybe we can just keep propping it up. Maybe we can suddenly ban share buybacks after all that manipulation. And it's just really sad to see because most people have absolutely no idea how this works and instead will call for people's deaths. Like Dan Dix at Press for Truth did a video on the street, walking down the street with 12 people, and Seth Rogen among just hundreds of thousands of people started messaging him on Twitter saying that he should be killed, arrested, burned, all sorts of stuff. Meanwhile, they're not mad about the global government basically enslaving them in debt, forcing them into their homes, having a communist takeover of private property, forcing them out of their jobs, causing possibly 1 billion people to lose their jobs worldwide by the end of this. They're not mad about that. They're not mad about a clear bioweapon that the U.S. funded that Wuhan lab for coronavirus studies in 2015, 2018, and continue today. They're not mad about that. They're not mad about the cashless society, the bail-in regimes, the bailouts that are mostly going to big businesses, the possibility of forced vaccinations. They're not worried about any of that. They're not worried about their children growing up in an age where we're looking at 10, 15 years of possible depression, where people aren't going to be able to feed themselves and people are going to be in bread lines. We're already seeing technical bread lines with lineup of cars waiting outside grocery stores. And the possibility of people raiding homes for food. I mean, violence on the rise. It's just, and people are mad about someone walking outside with 12 people. I mean, shame on these brainwashed slaves. It's so sad to watch how many brainwashed people are out there. But nonetheless, I know many of you are not. So deliver that information, share this information, get it out there. Hit that like button if you haven't already. Check out our new newsletter at www.iamband.com, and we're going to do our best to keep up with this, even though these videos are apparently against the terms of service on YouTube, and they're threatening to take down all of our videos. So find us on float.app and the alternatives as well. I don't care what they do. I'm speaking for the truth, and I cannot sleep at night if I do not speak the truth. So find us on float.app, flote.app, and it's at Josh Sigurdson as well as at Wham, and then find us on all the other things. Just look at the links below. It helps a lot. Share this video on social media to get around the shadow banning, and I appreciate everyone joining us. We'll continue to report on the latest on the economy and the stock market. JP Morgan is not looking good, but then again, they're probably going to get bailed out incredibly, and they have been complicit with the government and central planning for a long time, so what can we expect? Anyway, appreciate everyone joining us today, and until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
Like what you see here, WAM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon, subscribe star. We really can't do it without you. We've been so insanely shadow banned, about 90% at this point, and 95% demonetized. As Susan Wojcicki, the CEO of YouTube, comes in and says that she is shutting down quote-unquote controversial content and cutting out the views on this controversial content by 70%. She's been bragging about it. We need your help more than ever in this battle for truth in information. You guys are what keeps us alive, so we really appreciate just even $1 a month makes a huge difference. If everyone could give just $1 a month, we wouldn't even have to worry about competing against the mainstream propaganda networks. You can also donate to our Bitcoin address on the screen for you to scan if you please, as well as in the comments and description. Liking and sharing makes a big difference as well, and finding us on alternative social media platforms like float.app, that's flote.app, makes a huge difference. We're at Josh Sigurdson as well as at Wham. Float is replacing Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Tumblr, Reddit, and Patreon all in one with encrypted private messaging, and of course monetization on videos for creators, live streams with super chats in crypto, and most of all, no algorithm, because at the end of the day, it's all about reach, guys. This is all about actually reaching people with the message and waking up the public. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter, Minds, BitChute, all sorts of different platforms. Try to follow us on as many things as possible, because very soon this channel will very likely just be completely deleted from YouTube, and you'll never see us again, and you'll be stuck with only the mainstream networks. Also, come on out and see us at Anarcho Vegas 2020 in Las Vegas, Nevada in July, where such speakers such as G. Edward Griffin and many others will be speaking. You could use promo code WHAM on your VIP tickets and save 10%, as well as buy extremely cheap tickets for just $20.20. You won't find a cheaper conference than this with such amazing names. Check anarchovegas.com for more information on that. We hope to see you out there. And anyway, I really appreciate all of you guys joining us. You make it possible for us to survive in this volatile, propagandized climate. Until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.